Peter Parker runs a gauntlet as a mysterious company, Oscorp, sends up a slew of supervillains against him, impacting on his life. This is my review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I forgot to mention in my first review for The Amazing Spider-Man that I was really shocked at how good the movie was, because when I was going into the movie I was thinking to myself, like, how is this going to be better than the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man? Like, how is this origin story going to be better than the first origin story? And after seeing the movie and how darker of a tone it was and how it had a better Spider-Man in my opinion, I went out of the movie thinking to myself, wow, that was a really good movie, can't wait for the next Amazing Spider-Man to come out. And I thought that the first Amazing Spider-Man was so good that I decided to put The Amazing Spider-Man 2 on my top 15 most anticipated movies of this year. So I saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a few weeks ago with my dad, and I have to tell you guys that I thought the movie was alright. It wasn't bad, but I will say that it was disappointing for a sequel. The good points. The number one thing I liked about this movie were actually two things. The directing from Mark Webb and the acting from most of the cast. I thought that Mark Webb did a better job directing the emotional scenes and the action scenes. Like, the action scenes were really good. I thought they were directed very well, and I thought the emotional scenes brought up the level of emotions in this movie. And I thought that most of the acting was great, from Andrew Garfield, Jamie Foxx, Dane DeHaan, Emma Stone, Sally Field. I especially liked the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, Andrew Garfield and Dane DeHaan, and Andrew Garfield and Sally Field. I thought that their scenes, for all of them, which they had together, were really well done. And speaking of the action scenes, I thought that the cinematography was done really great during the action scenes. I thought it was really cool that we got to see sort of a point of view of what was like with Spider-Man slinging around. Like, it was sort of like a GoPro, but it was like around his chest, or well, I can't remember. It was either on his chest or it was behind him on his back, and we got to see him sling. And I thought those were really cool shots, and just him free falling out of the sky. I thought those were cool shots as well. And I thought that the cinematography was good, showing wide shots of the action scenes as well. I thought that the visual effects were better than they were from the first Amazing Spider-Man. I thought that the visual effects were stepped up a notch in this movie, and some people complained that they sort of look like video game effects or something, or sort of like a video game style, but I would disagree, because I thought that there were some points where, yes, it was a little bit video gamey, but I thought overall they were trying to be realistic, and some parts were. I like this version of the costume a little bit better from the first one in The Amazing Spider-Man, and from the Sam Raimi series as well, because it's sort of the best of both worlds from both Sam Raimi and from the new style. It sort of has new costume has a little bit more of a brighter tone to it, and they got rid of the glass eyes from the first Amazing Spider-Man. They put back the white ones, but they sort of had that shininess to them, like they did with the first Amazing Spider-Man. I also thought the makeup was really done well with the Green Goblin, or the Hobgoblin, whatever you want to call him. I thought that the makeup on him was done really well. And not just the Green Goblin, I thought the makeup was done well with Chris Cooper's character, Norman Osborn, and with Dane DeHaan's character, Harry Osborn, when he was starting to get sick, and then the sickness started to grow throughout his body. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I think that Jamie Foxx, his character, Electro, also has some makeup. It was a mix of makeup and visual effects that were done to him. But if some parts were makeup, then they were done really well. I thought that the score by Hans Zimmer was great in this movie. I mean, some people complained about the score, and I really don't understand why. I mean, I understand some parts, but overall, I thought it was a really great score. I liked the theme for Spider-Man and the theme for Electro. And the final two things I'll say that are good about this movie are some parts of the writing I thought were good, and some parts of the movie that had good pacing and editing. The bad points. Like with the last movie, I'll say that the major bad point about this movie was advertising, and I know you can't really judge an entire movie based on advertising, but like when you have the amount of advertising that this movie had, then it's considered a bad point because it spoiled most of the good parts and it spoiled the ending for you. I mean, I'll get to it in the spoiler section, but the advertising was just ridiculous for this movie. The next bad point I'll say about this movie is the writing, since it felt like it was trying to put too much in this movie, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. But I think that, yeah, definitely this movie is better than Spider-Man 3 for sure, because Spider-Man 3 was just a piece of garbage in my opinion. But at least Amazing Spider-Man 3 had some redeeming qualities, but still, it sort of had the effect that Spider-Man 3 had when it was trying to put too much in the same movie. I thought there were some characters that weren't necessary in this movie. I thought there were some scenes that weren't necessary in this movie. I thought there were some characters that were underused in this movie. And there were a different variety of tones in this movie. Like, I don't mind if there's like a bunch of tones, at least if they're consistent with each other. But in this movie, I didn't feel like all of the tones in this movie were consistent with each other. I mean, there were some that were consistent, but not all of them together. And the final thing I'll say about the writing is that there were just some parts that I thought were just stupid and just didn't make sense. But I'll explain all this in the spoiler section of this review. Another thing I didn't like about this movie was the post-credits. Well, there wasn't post-credits. Well, I mean, some people say there are post-credits, but it's really just advertising for X-Men Days of Future Past because of this deal that Sony and Fox had with each other. And, I mean, I've heard that they deleted a post-credit scene from the movie, either because they had to make room for the advertising for X-Men, or just because it didn't fit into this movie or something. If it was just to make room for the X-Men advertising, then it's like, why? Like, couldn't you just put it at like the end like of the credits, like not the mid credits? You know, like in the in the mid credits, you should have put like your post credits to expand like your universe, like your cinematic universe that you're creating, and like in the end, like have the X-Men advertisement or something. The final bad thing I'll say about this movie is the editing and pacing. Like, and I think this has to do with the tones again, because the tones were inconsistent with each other, so the editing and pacing were a bit inconsistent with each other as well. Alright, like I said, I saw this movie with my dad. My dad gives this movie a 3 out of 4 stars. While I give it a 2.5 out of 4 stars. You know, like I said, I thought it was an alright movie. It wasn't bad, it was just disappointing for me for it to be a sequel of The Amazing Spider-Man. I don't really think you need to see it now, but I think it's worth watching when it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. Alright, spoilers for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you're interested in seeing The Amazing Spider-Man, then don't watch this review because, well, this is what the title suggests, spoiling. So I forgot to mention this in the good points, but there was this one scene that I really liked, and the thing was, it was already spoiled to me because of some fans when I was like watching a trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man on YouTube, and I checked the comments, and this one scene was spoiled to me. I was like, oh, come on, really? And that scene, of course, was the death of Gwen Stacy. I thought that, even though it was spoiled to me, it was really well shot. I mean, it was really well done. I liked the way Mark Webb directed it because of how tense it made you feel. Like, even if you knew, like, what was going to happen, like, when Gwen Stacy died, like, when Spider-Man caught him, and then when, like, she, like, hit her head on, like, the pavement, and it was like, whoa, jeez. And not only was that really well, directed scene, it was a really well acted scene as well from Andrew Garfield. Like, when you saw him, like, breaking down, like, you really felt bad for him, and I was like, holy crap, like, in my seat, like, even though I knew, like, it was happening, I was still like, oh, man, Okay, now, let's just get into the bad points now. I mean, just the writing. Let's just talk about the writing of this movie. I mean, the writing was just overall terrible, in my opinion. And I think the reason the writing was terrible was because it was just, this movie was just setting up, like, for the next few Spider-Man movies because of Sinister Six. They're trying to put into this cinematic universe. And I thought that they should have put, like, most of their attention on, like, one of the villains. Or, I mean, at least two tops. I mean, let's talk about the Rhino also. Like, the Rhino, like, wasn't even needed in this movie. Like, I didn't understand why he was even in here. I mean, okay, the reason is because to set up Sinister Six, but I mean, really, there was no use for him. Like, he was useless in this movie. Like, it didn't make sense to put him in this movie. And the worst thing about it was that the ending was spoiled to us as well with the Rhino. The Rhino being in the end, and it was like, really? You spoiled the ending for us in the trailers? What I thought they should have done was focus more on Electro. Have Harry Osborn there, but not become like Green Goblin or Hobgoblin yet. Like, you can like show him like still like he's like deteriorating from like the sickness he has. But like you should put like most of your focus on Electro, since like you show him a lot in the trailers. And then in the next movie you can focus more on like Green Goblin / Hobgoblin and the Sinister Six. But no, they just rushed Electro's character and they rushed Green Goblin by just putting him in there. I was disappointed that they rushed Electro's character, played by Jamie Foxx, because I thought that his character was interesting, even though we've sort of seen it like before in other movies. And the way they used Harry Osborn turned it into Green Goblin / Hobgoblin. Like, okay, just comment down below, was it Green Goblin or was it Hobgoblin? But anyways, yeah, they rushed his character in there just so that he could kill Gwen Stacy, and I understand so that the ending could happen, but still, it was like really rushed. And then when Harry Osborn is in like prison or whatever, and when the mysterious guy comes in to talk to him, I thought that part should have been a post-credit scene or something, because it's like Harry Osborn talking to the mysterious guy, like talking about like his group that he wants to make and like where to find everything. And I thought that would have been a great like mid-credits or post-credit scene. And another thing I want to talk about the writing was that, like I said in the bad points, there were some parts that I thought were just stupid or didn't make any sense. And one of those things was the people of New York in this movie, because when Spider-Man is fighting Electro, or when he's fighting the Rhino in the end scene, it's like they like a bunch of people are standing like near the barricades where the police are blocking them off, and they're not frightened by a person shooting electricity out of their hands or by this giant exoskeleton rhino suit thing shooting machine gun bullets at the police. And it's like, really? You're not running away? For instance, in the first movie, like, there were like New Yorkers running away from the lizard and everything because he was doing some bad stuff, but it's like in this movie, they're not doing anything. Like, they're not running away for some odd reason just to watch Spider-Man fight, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like I would run and just watch it on TV. So that was my review for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Hope you guys liked it, and other than that, that's it.